Hello and welcome to Applied Humanities. This is week 4 and your introductory audio video. In the last lecture, we talked about evidence in the humanities and why it's important to be able to appeal to evidence, right? Because the objective qualities of a piece of art or a song or a poem are what you can appeal to ground or provide foundations for the way that it makes you feel. So the question this week that we're posing is ultimately whether or not all feelings, all subjective feelings about a piece of art are on equal ground, or are some feelings more quote unquote right than others. In examining the humanities, this next week asked us to look at the objective qualities of a piece of art and question whether or not there are objective qualities that make a piece of art good. Now, in the introductory text where you found this video, I mentioned there's a well-known Latin phrase, de gustibus non est disputandum, which translates to, in matters of taste, there is no dispute. And what that means is you can't really tell someone that they're wrong about something that they don't like, right? They just, I don't like it. It's not my cup of tea. Well, that's sort of true, right? Like you can't be wrong about the fact that you don't like something because it's your subjective feeling. But the question becomes whether or not that holds true about art. Like nobody can tell you that you like Starry Night if you don't like it. That's for sure. But the question whether or not Starry Night is good, whether or not it is good art, is a different question entirely from whether or not you like it. So I guess the question really becomes, is good art simply reducible to the fact that we like it? Or is it the case that art is good because of certain qualities that it has, regardless of whether or not we like it? Another way to ask this question is, when it comes to art, is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Is beauty in the art itself, and it requires a trained eye to see it? So to summarize this, we know that we have objective qualities that are in the art, and we know that we have subjective feelings about those qualities, about that art. Where does the goodness of the art come from? Does it come from the objective qualities, or does it come from our feelings about it? You might say, look, if everyone says this art is good objectively, but nobody likes it, then you might question whether or not it's actually good, right? But it seems to be the case, as especially with music, right? That you know, a song that people say is really, really, really good, technically good, organizationally and structurally good. It's also the case that a lot of people like that. So that's kind of the idea, right? That when people tend to like something, there's usually an objective quality about that thing that makes them like it. And that's really what we're pointing to when we say that art is good. And now we can see why the previous discussion about evidence in the humanities was important. Because not only is it necessary to look to the objective qualities of a piece in order to provide a foundation for your own subjective liking or disliking of it, but it might also be a way to sort of appeal to some standard of beauty or goodness that might be inherent in the art itself, and it allows you to explain why something might be objectively good, if you believe that such a thing is possible. I often say to my kids, I think I read it somewhere, about, you have to try this food to see if you like it, but you have to try it more than once. You can't just try it once and say, I don't like that, because you've heard people say you need to train your palate, or you need to develop the ability to like this thing. You have to, I think I read somewhere that you have to try something 8 times before you sort of, I don't know how it works biologically or chemically, but you have to try something more than once to know if you like it. So there's that. It sort of makes sense now that we talked about learning to see and learning to hear, and these kinds of phrases in the earlier parts of this course, because there are certain qualities of art that if you're not really trained to see them or to encounter them in this most fruitful way, the richness of the experience won't be there for you. And if it's not there, you might not appreciate it. And that it's that appreciation that can open the doorway to your liking or disliking of something. Just especially for me, you can read a poem and say, oh, that's nice. But when you know the reason that the person was writing it, or you can draw historical references to different lines, say, oh, the author was actually referring to this thing that was happening, or the author was actually, he wrote this line or she wrote that line, and the real underlying meaning of this had to do with this person's relationship with, their, their long lost love, or someone who died, or something that was emotionally resonant. So knowing how to get underneath and dig into the foundations of different pieces of art can actually open up the pathways to appreciation and to understanding of why such a thing might be celebrated as technically good and objectively good. I know there's a lot on your plate this week, so I won't take up too much more of your time here. I just wanted to provide a foundation for the discussion. And, since we were talking about evidence in the humanities and objective qualities of the work, prepare you for this idea that we want to start thinking about whether or not we can use those objective qualities to actually say that a piece of art or a piece of creative expression is objectively good, and whether good means something beyond whether we like it or not. All right, good luck this week, and please reach out to me with any questions. Thanks, everybody.